Good morning, good morning, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you are watching this program. This is the Week 4 Review Show. I am your host, Stephen Willis, and what we're trying to do here is about 10 minutes, just go through the weekend's top stories and get you up to date, and get you prepared to win the water cooler, as they say on the J-Boy Show on Mondays. So, without further ado, let's get started. The first storyline that we want to talk about is that the ACC is dead. It is gone. RIP ACC. North Carolina State with a 27-21 victory over Clemson. Clemson's second loss of the season coming on September 25th. Also, North Carolina was defeated. Let's see, who did they get beat by? I'm looking at... They dropped a game as well. They got beat by Georgia Tech convincingly, 45-22 last night, which basically all the three things that we were told about the ACC was Clemson, Miami, North Carolina. Get ready for these three teams. They could crash the playoffs. Two could get in like they did last year whenever they had Notre Dame. And everybody completely laid an egg, to the point where the best team in the ACC might end up being Georgia Tech. It'll be interesting to watch, but it's going to be wide open in that conference this year. Potentially no bids going out to that conference. I don't think they have enough to get into the top four at this point. And it is what it is, but the ACC going down, and more specifically Clemson going down, is kind of an interesting storyline, especially what's coming up in the next week. Also, Arkansas jumped all over Texas A&M. The first quarter was a Vanderbilt-style boat racing, and they completely took control of the game, got to a 17-0 lead, and then held on. They got a field goal at the end to make it a two-score game. Calzada was never dropping two scores against that drop 8 defense. Ask Matt Corral what that defense can do the first time you see it. It'll get easier than each time afterwards. But as it sits now, that's a tough ask. It's like whenever Bryce Young goes against Ole Miss is playing a variation of that drop 8. So I'm interested to see what that offense does. Bryce Young last night was completely dropping dimes. But Arkansas, a 20-10 winner in a football game to where, honestly, they should probably switch places. Arkansas came in at 16, A&M at 7. I would have really no issue if you just change the number in front of the names. Sorry about that. Fresno State defeated UNLV. What a lot of people think is the number 3 right now in the Heisman rank. Played in that game. I don't hear much. I don't really have much faith in a guy from the West Coast winning the Heisman that's not at USC. It is what it is. Penn State took care of business against Villanova. Notre Dame used a strong fourth quarter to put away Wisconsin. Georgia, 62-0 winner over Vanderbilt. It was actually worse than it appears. Georgia scored 8 touchdowns. Vandy had 4 first downs. Coastal Carolina blew out UMass. Iowa was losing at halftime, but ended up winning the game 24-14 versus Colorado State. That's interesting. Vandy defeated Colorado State, so that makes me nervous about my playoff ranking, because we'll get to it in a second. Michigan squeaked past Rutgers 20-13. This is going to be the downside of that offense that Jim Harbaugh wants to play. This is the downside. It's going to be low-scoring games. There's a chance to get upset. So it is what it is. Baylor beat Iowa State 31-29. Another team that was really hyped up for the playoff in the preseason. 2 losses already. Auburn probably shouldn't have beat Georgia State. And let me explain. As they were driving down, it was 24-19. 24-19, Georgia State was leading with like a minute left to go in the game. And Auburn completed a 25-yard pass on third or fourth down or whenever, first down, whatever it was. It was the play that got it from just outside the 30 to inside the 10. This comeback doesn't really happen without that play. The ball clearly touched the ground. It was reviewed and upheld, but the ball clearly touched the ground. So Auburn got a little home cooking. They got home cooking last year in the Arkansas game and the Ole Miss game, and I just don't get it. But Bo Nix got benched. TJ Finley finished the game. They go to LSU, so it could be a TJ Finley return to Baton Rouge. I'm really curious about how all of that gets handled. Genuinely. UCLA bounced back to defeat Stanford 35-24. Oklahoma State beat Kansas State 31-20. Michigan State in overtime defeated Nebraska 23-20. Nebraska's special teams yet again let them down. This has been week after week after week at this point. The special team is a liability, and it's the difference between this Nebraska team maybe being 4-1 right now and them being like 2-3 or whatever they are at the moment, 1-3. So, yeah, it's a bad situation. I think they're 2-3. Florida defeated Tennessee 38-14. Tennessee looked good. Deep ball hit by Hendon Hooker. Everything was going well, and then the second half, they just didn't do it. We told you Georgia Tech defeated North Carolina. Oklahoma defeated West Virginia. And let me say, Oklahoma is playing like a top 20 team. And I mean that honestly. And when I say top 20 team, I mean it's a team that should be ranked number 18th. They would be absolutely fine if they were ranked 18th. They are not performing like a top 5 team. They need to be dropped down. They need to be dropped down significantly, even though they keep barely winning games. The only flip side that I can think of as a devil's advocate type situation is the Florida State team with Jameis that won the national championship. They were down each and every week, came back, won the game, barely won the game, and by the time they got the playoffs, or BCS, they were clicking. Ohio State 59-7 over Akron. Okay. Alabama 63-14 over Southern Miss. 2 kickoff returns. That's pretty interesting. That's the reason Alabama was able to hit that huge line. 2 kickoff returns. BYU defeated South Florida. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing or what's going on here, but they beat them 35-27. Oregon defeated Arizona 41-19. So Arizona's winless. Oregon took care of business. So that is good to go. If you want to look at our playoff rankings right now, we are sticking with Georgia at number 1. We are sticking at Georgia at number 1, Alabama at number 2. Alabama actually played like a top 5 team last night. Southern Miss isn't good, but they took care of business. They absolutely took care of business. Cincinnati behaving like a top 5 team. They get to stay in at number 3. Oregon number 4 with the win over Arizona stays at number 4. Number 5 is Iowa. Number 6 is Penn State. And I was a little bit nervous about the Iowa pick, but I'm going to leave them where they are because of the style of offense they play. That's very Michigan-like. I expect Michigan to move up this list too. Iowa and Penn State play later in the year, so one of them are going to disappear. And the SEC, the teams behind Alabama and Georgia are still jockeying for position. Eventually that could be in Arkansas. Eventually that could be in Ole Miss. But we will know that by October 9th. And you'll be able to accurately predict on the SEC West starting October 9th, because after October 9th, Ole Miss will have played Alabama and Arkansas. Arkansas will have played Ole Miss and Texas A&M, with Georgia in the middle. Good grief, that's a murderer's row. Alabama will have Ole Miss and Texas A&M. So that's what they're going for the next few weeks. I think that's the top tier of the SEC, and they're just going to play their ways out over the next couple of weeks. So this has been the Week 4 review show. Hope you enjoyed it. Tell your friends if you enjoyed it. Like, share, comment, do all of that good stuff. It's going to air about 6 o'clock on Sunday night. This is a recorded program. But if it was a live stream, you would be able to participate in the chat. And the chat is really cool. So once we get going this week, we will be able to hit our nightly live streams of SEC After Dark, Beast of the East, Best of the West. We are going to do the Palmcast every day. Obviously, Alabama week, this is going to be a big week. And those are days with the live stream with the chat open. Feel free to participate, ask any question you want to have. We will answer it. Now, we're also going to do things like Talking Ball with Bill Flowers. We're going to do an extended pregame show with Jake Thomas and Stacey Blackwood this week. Tune in for that. We are going to do our Biscuits and SEC thing that we've always been doing. That's actually doing pretty well for us. And the content and perspectives. I mean, we've got an Arkansas guy. We have an Alabama guy. We have a Georgia guy. I'm an Ole Miss guy. That's potentially the top 4 in the SEC this year. I have access to a Florida guy, too, if I need one. And we can get perspectives of all those leaders to do that. So this is really working out for what we're doing, especially having what's going on. If we were going off of prognostication, I'd have never gone and gotten the Arkansas guy, but I did. Because even though they went like 3-7 during the COVID year, which, like I said, is a weird year, you could see it was flashing. It was absolutely flashing, and it was really cool. So I want everybody to tune in. Again, you can follow us at Old Positively or at The Stephen Willis on Twitter. On Facebook at facebook.com/Palmcast. Follow us up on YouTube at Positively Ole Miss. Hit the bell and subscribe. You'll not only know that we're streaming, you'll know what we're streaming about. And Positively Ole Miss, all one word, all lowercase, on Twitch. Audio-wise, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and Pandora. Also, Amazon Music and Audible. And I think Good Pods. That's another place that reached out to me to put it on there. So did that the other day as well. So Good Pods. We're up on the podcast. Also, if you have any podcasts that you want us to get to that we're not on, let us know down in the comments. We'll do what we can to get it done. It might take a couple of days, might take a week, but it'll get done. And of course, moving into Alabama week. Let's enjoy this week. Let's have fun. Let's absolutely do not. This is probably the first time since 2015 that this game, you just walk in there feeling like some semblance of equal footing. Alabama could absolutely boat race Ole Miss. That could absolutely happen. They've got the athletes to do it. I don't think they have the scheme to do it. We absolutely have the scheme to do it. We might not have the athletes to do it, which makes for a fairly good game as long as both sides play clean. So I'm looking forward to an entertaining game, a lot of fun, and I will tell you next week about a wager that I made. I think we might do it on Best of the West this week. We'll talk about that a little bit. So, for week 4, I hope everybody had a good time, and we will see you all during the week. Until then, of course, hotty toddy.